My beloved child, something is moving in the unseen realms right now. Quiet, intense, undeniable. A divine shift is forming around your life, and Archangel Michael has stepped forward with a message so urgent that the heavens themselves feel heavier with expectation. He declares that a reversal is coming, a holy turning point that will expose every hidden force working against you. But he also warns, this shift requires immediate trust, or it will pass by like a wind you could have captured but didn't. Listen closely, because the very atmosphere around you is changing. The delays you thought were normal, the resistance you assumed was random, the sudden moments where everything felt blocked, none of it was accidental. Archangel Michael reveals that these were signs, signals from the spiritual realm, letting you know that your battle was never earthly. Something was pressing in on your life, distorting what was meant for you, slowing what was already yours, weakening what your spirit carried. And now heaven is stepping in to reverse it. But this reversal is not gentle. It isn't subtle. It comes like a sword of light cutting through the fog around your path. Archangel Michael shows himself standing at the threshold of your next chapter with his wings extended, blazing with divine authority. He says you have cried out for change. Now the shift is here. But you must trust the path, even before it makes sense. There are moments when destiny knocks softly, and then there are moments when it shakes your entire world. This is the second one. The shift coming for you is not just a blessing. It is a correction, a cosmic realignment, a supernatural course adjustment designed to break cycles, reveal truth, and restore what was stolen from your spirit. Archangel Michael whispers that your name has been spoken in the courts of heaven. Decisions have been made on your behalf, and everything that rose against you, seen or unseen, will now be forced to loosen its grip. The pressure you felt was not punishment. It was the final tightening before release, the last contraction before breakthrough. What you thought was working against you was actually exposing itself. But here's the part that heaven insists you hear. The shift requires immediate trust. Not later. Not when things look stable. Not when you have proof. Trust now, while everything still looks uncertain. Because it is your trust that activates the reversal. Your trust opens the gates. Your trust pulls the divine shift into the natural world. Archangel Michael shows a vision, a massive wheel suspended above your life, blocked for a long time, suddenly beginning to turn. And the moment it moves, everything changes direction. What was falling apart begins falling into place. What was delayed begins accelerating. What was dim becomes clear. But his voice carries urgency. If fear speaks louder than trust, the shift will slow. If doubt rises above faith, the wheel hesitates. Heaven is asking for your yes, your alignment, your surrender of the old fear patterns that told you to brace for disappointment. Because disappointment was not your destiny, it was only the shadow before the real light arrived. Right now, your spirit may feel something stirring, an inner trembling, a quiet recognition. That's because your soul already knows this message is not random. This is your moment of holy confirmation. You were meant to hear this. You were chosen to receive it. Archangel Michael is preparing to reverse the words spoken against you, the opportunities withheld from you, the energy drained from you, the relationships that distracted you, the paths that turned dark without explanation. Nothing that tried to minimize your calling will survive the shift. Nothing that tried to bury your voice will remain hidden. Nothing that tried to keep you small will stand once the reversal begins. But breathe deeply, because this is only the beginning. The most shocking part of this divine shift is still ahead. And you must stay with this message if you want to understand why your life has felt so spiritually strange lately. The revelation that follows will make everything click into place. Before you move forward, pause. Feel the weight of this moment. Something is about to open for you, and if you rush past it, you may miss the very guidance meant to protect your next step. Hold still. Let your spirit lean in, because what comes next will explain everything. Type "I trust" the shift in the comments if this word is awakening something inside you. Lesson code 1444 is now released over your path. My cherished soul, there is a moment right before a divine shift breaks open when the air around your life begins to feel different, heavy yet holy, unsettled yet purposeful. This is the moment you are standing in right now. Archangel Michael steps forward again, and his presence is not quiet this time. It carries the sound of movement, the vibration of something rearranging itself in the spirit realm. He says that the forces that once pushed against you are now losing their tension, losing their grip, losing the authority they once pretended to have over your path. And yet, he also warns you with tenderness. Trust is the key that keeps this shift moving forward. Without trust, the spiritual wheel slows. Without trust, the reversal pauses, waiting for your heart to align again. You may have noticed strange patterns around your life lately. Opportunities that looked certain suddenly slip away. People who once seemed supportive began acting distant or confusing. Plans you thought were settled began unraveling without explanation. These were not failures. These were spiritual alerts. Heaven was clearing your field, removing the noise, exposing the fragile foundation so that only what is meant to remain can stand. Archangel Michael reveals that every sudden ending, every unexpected shift, every emotional jolt was part of a divine exchange happening behind the scenes. Something you could not carry into the next season was being stripped away from you, not to diminish you, but to protect what is coming next. You have been asking for clarity, and heaven says clarity is on its way. But before it arrives, something much bigger must happen. Your inner atmosphere must be steadied. Your spirit must be anchored. Your heart must be prepared for the reversal that is approaching like a roaring current. Picture a river that has been flowing against you for far too long suddenly turning in your favor. When the water shifts, it doesn't move gently. It surges. It overtakes. It sweeps away what doesn't belong. This is what is happening spiritually. The current is about to change direction, and everything that was fighting you will be forced to release its position. Archangel Michael shows a vision of you standing in a doorway. Behind you lies the season you've already outgrown. Ahead of you lies the new path, glowing with possibility, but still veiled enough to require trust. He says you are not stuck. You are transitioning. You are crossing from the old cycle into the divine reversal. Do not misinterpret the friction you feel. It is simply the tension of transformation. What appeared as resistance was actually redirection. What appeared as loss was actually positioning. What appeared as confusion was actually preparation. Many times, what opposes you right before a breakthrough is simply the old spiritual pattern fighting for its final breath. It senses that its time is up. It senses that heaven is intervening. It senses that your spirit is awakening. And so it tries to overwhelm you with doubt, fear, second-guessing, or emotional heaviness. Archangel Michael urges you, step out of the emotional fog. You are not being attacked. You are being shifted. You are not being abandoned. You are being guided. You are not being blocked. You are being rerouted into alignment with what is truly yours. Heaven is not asking you to pretend everything is easy. Heaven is asking you to trust that everything is meaningful. This shift is not random. It is precise. It is time. It is sacred. And you will understand it more clearly in the days ahead. But for now, all that is required of you is willingness. willingness to let go of the old emotional patterns, willingness to stop rehearsing old fears, willingness to stop assuming disappointment, willingness to allow the divine reversal to unfold without trying to control it. Archangel Michael says you have prayed for change, but now that change is arriving, your spirit must remain open. This is not the time to retreat into old doubts. This is the time to rise into spiritual trust. He says, your breakthrough is not waiting for the perfect moment. It is waiting for your yes. When you release fear, you activate the shift. When you release worry, you accelerate the reversal. When you release control, you unlock what heaven has been holding for you. Your life is being rewritten right now. You may not see the full picture yet, but you can feel the tremors of what is coming. The shift is drawing closer, moving like a bright wave through the atmosphere. Everything that once worked against you is about to be flipped. The unseen interference around your life will collapse. The spiritual delays will dissolve. The heaviness around your path will lift. And the clarity you have been longing for will break through with undeniable force. But make no mistake, this message found you for a reason. You were not meant to hear it halfway. You were not meant to grasp only the surface. The next revelation holds the explanation for why heaven is so urgent right now. What is coming is bigger than you know. And before this divine shift completes its work, you must understand what triggered it and what it is clearing out of your life. Hold steady for what comes next. The next moment in this message will reveal the deeper truth behind the spiritual reversal that has already begun. You will want to hear every word of it. Type "I trust the shift with my whole spirit" in the comments if your heart is responding to this. Blessing code 2024 is now active over your journey. My awakened one, there comes a moment in every spiritual journey when the veil thins so dramatically that truth begins to press against your life from every direction. That is where you are right now. This is why everything has felt intense, unpredictable, almost as if the ground beneath you has been rearranging itself without warning. Archangel Michael steps forward again and says this is not chaos. This is alignment. This is the divine shift moving into its next stage, a stage where truth confronts illusion and where what once hid in shadows becomes fully exposed. He wants you to understand that heaven is not only reversing what worked against you, it is also revealing what could not travel with you into your next chapter. Here is something powerful unfolding around your spirit. You may have sensed sudden moments of heaviness, moments of clarity, or even moments of emotional shaking. These are not random sensations. Archangel Michael reveals that your spirit has been picking up on the displacement of old energies that were once attached to your journey. When heaven initiates a reversal, nothing that was rooted in fear, deception, or spiritual interference can remain. They have to detach. They have to break off. They have to lose access to your path. This process can feel overwhelming, because even spiritual release can mimic emotional turbulence. But he assures you, do not fear the shaking. The shaking is proof that the shift has begun. What has been rising in your life recently, the tension, the questions, the sudden inner sensitivity, has been a signal that divine order is being restored. When Archangel Michael draws near, old patterns begin to unravel. Old attachments loosen. Old doubts surface only to be dismantled. He says the shift is now moving into the realm of exposure. Everything that worked against you in subtle, quiet, or invisible ways is being brought forward so that it can be reversed with finality. Nothing hidden will remain hidden. Nothing deceptive will remain unchallenged. Nothing that drains your light will survive this season of reversal. But here's the deeper truth he urges you to grasp. The shift is not happening around you. It is happening through you. It is your willingness, your sensitivity, your spiritual openness that is allowing this process to unfold with such precision. You have been praying for breakthrough, but heaven has been preparing you for something even greater: transformation. Breakthrough changes a situation. Transformation changes you. And Archangel Michael says that the reversal coming to your life will not simply rearrange circumstances. It will rewrite the spiritual atmosphere surrounding your entire destiny. There is a sacred boldness rising in your spirit. You may not feel it fully yet, but heaven sees it. The fear that once controlled you is weakening. The doubt that once silenced you is losing its authority. The insecurities that once kept you from stepping fully into your calling are cracking open and losing their hold. This is why the divine shift requires immediate trust. Trust stabilizes the transformation. Trust opens the spiritual gates. Trust keeps you aligned as heaven continues to reverse what once resisted you. Archangel Michael reveals something profound. You have reached the threshold where your past loses its power. The cycle that once repeated itself in your life is being dismantled. The old emotional patterns that once attracted disappointment are being uprooted. The spiritual heaviness that once followed you is being cut off. And this is only the beginning. He says you are standing at the edge of a divine unveiling. What you are about to understand in the next moment of this message will change how you interpret the last few years of your life. But before we continue deeper, he wants you to anchor this truth. When heaven shifts, nothing remains the same. You cannot cling to the old and expect the new. You cannot protect what heaven is trying to remove. You cannot fear what heaven is trying to reveal. This shift requires trust, because trust is the bridge that carries you from who you were into who you are becoming. You may have felt alone in your journey, but Archangel Michael has been walking beside you, guiding, guarding, and preparing you. Even in moments when you felt abandoned or unheard, heaven was moving pieces into place. Every delay had purpose. Every closed door and protection. Every sudden change had divine intelligence written into it. And now the reversal begins to accelerate. Before this shift completes itself, Archangel Michael wants you to hear one more truth. Your life is not falling apart. It is falling into alignment. The disorder you see is merely the rearrangement required for the divine order that is coming. And the revelation ahead will show you exactly what has been reversing behind the scenes long before you notice the signs. Stay with this message. You are approaching the heart of it. What comes next will open your eyes in a way you have never experienced before. Type "I walk with trust" in the comments if you feel something stirring in your spirit. Blessing code 3388 is now released over your transition. And now, before moving forward, make sure you like this message, share it with someone who needs to hear it, comment to keep this word alive, and subscribe so you never miss a divine confirmation meant for your path. When a divine shift touches a soul, heaven often invites that soul to take part in the spreading of the very light that transformed them. Just as this message has reached you, it will reach others through your willingness to strengthen this mission. I speak to you now, not as a creator, but as a vessel. When you sow into the work that carries God's voice, you are not giving to a platform. You are releasing light into places where darkness has claimed too much territory. The scriptures declare that those who water others will themselves be watered, and today that word becomes alive in you. I feel led to say, if this message is awakening something in your spirit, step into it with action. Let your generosity become the seed that heaven multiplies, whether through super thanks, channel membership, or the PayPal link in the description. As you give, I decree that the same reversal working in your life will accelerate. Move boldly. Move prophetically. Support this mission and watch heaven honor your obedience. My dear guided soul, there is a moment in every divine process where heaven pauses, not because the shift has stopped, but because your spirit must be prepared to receive the next layer of truth. That is the moment you have just entered. Archangel Michael steps forward again, his presence steady and radiant, carrying a message that is both comforting and confronting. He says the reversal moving toward your life is bigger than anything you have asked for. It is reaching into places you forgot needed healing. It is touching areas of your life where silence has lived for too long. It is correcting patterns you normalized because you didn't know they were spiritual interference and not personality traits. And now the time has come to uncover the roots behind the resistance you have faced. Heaven wants you to understand why your journey has felt like a battlefield, even in seasons when you were not outwardly fighting anything. Archangel Michael reveals that the resistance around your life did not form from one source. It grew through accumulation. Disappointments that were never resolved. Wounds that went unspoken. Words spoken over you that attached themselves to your spirit. Internal narratives you absorbed from environments that never truly saw your worth. And unseen forces that sensed the magnitude of your calling long before you did. All of these created layers, and each layer contributed to the delays, the confusion, and the emotional weight you often carried without explanation. But now, the divine shift is unraveling these layers. He says that heaven is not merely removing obstacles, it is removing spiritual residue. The heaviness you felt recently was not a sign of weakness. It was the final contraction before breakthrough, the final tightening before release. Every spiritual system that once held influence over your path is losing its authority. Every limiting belief that shaped your decisions is being dismantled. Every piece of discouragement that attached itself to your identity is being forcibly peeled away by the light of truth. There is something else Archangel Michael wants you to see clearly. You have been adjusting your life around things that were never meant to stay. You tolerated cycles that were supposed to end. You carried people who were meant only for a chapter, not the entire story. You held on to circumstances that were draining your spirit because you were afraid that release meant loss. But heaven clarifies that release is not loss. It is preparation. It creates room for what matches your calling, not just your comfort. And this shift is all about alignment, not attachment. You may feel emotional waves rise up as you hear this. That is because your soul recognizes truth before your mind fully processes it. Something within you knows that you have been walking around with spiritual weight that wasn't yours. Something within you knows that you were molded by experiences that were never designed to define you. And something within you knows that this divine reversal is not coming to restore who you were. It is coming to reveal who you truly are beneath the layers of what life placed on you. Archangel Michael reveals that the reason trust is required immediately is because heaven is moving faster than your emotions can comprehend. When the divine shift accelerates, your spirit aligns before your mind catches up. This can create moments where you feel torn between what you know spiritually and what you see physically. Moments where everything looks uncertain, yet something inside you whispers that you are safe. Moments where your faith rises even though your circumstances have not changed yet. These moments are not contradictions, they are confirmation. They are proof that your spirit is already stepping into the reversal long before the evidence appears. Heaven urges you to hold on to this truth. The reversal will not mirror the pain you experienced. It will exceed it. It will not simply undo what was done. It will elevate you beyond where you would have been without the struggle. Divine reversals are not neutral corrections. They are supernatural compensations. Archangel Michael says that what you lost emotionally, spiritually, and energetically will return with increase, not equal measure. There is also a quiet message he whispers now. You have been too accustomed to fighting alone. He wants you to release the belief that everything must be carried by your strength. The shift entering your life is not powered by your effort. It is powered by heaven's decree. You are not responsible for forcing anything. You are only responsible for opening your heart to what is unfolding. Trust does not mean bypassing fear. Trust means choosing alignment even when fear attempts to speak louder. And now, as the divine shift deepens, Archangel Michael reveals the next phase, revelation. He says that heaven is preparing to show you why certain connections fell apart, why certain opportunities collapsed, why certain seasons ended abruptly, and why you had to walk through paths that felt lonely. Not as punishment, not as abandonment, but as spiritual engineering. Heaven was constructing your breakthrough long before you recognized the foundation being laid. Stay close to this message. Do not pull away. The next revelation that is coming is the one that ties everything together. The meaning behind the shaking, the purpose behind the reversals, the reason heaven has been so urgent with you. What comes next will illuminate everything you've walked through with divine clarity. Type "I am ready for the revelation" in the comments if this word reaches your spirit. Blessing code 5511 is now activated over your awakening. My steadfast soul, as you step further into this message, something within you may already sense the atmosphere shifting. It is not your imagination. It is not emotional intensity. It is the spiritual pressure of truth pressing inward, preparing to unveil what has remained hidden around your life for far too long. Archangel Michael stands closer now, and his voice carries the weight of certainty as he reveals that the divine shift moving toward you is not just a reversal of circumstances and energies. It is a revelation of purpose, identity, and spiritual authority. Heaven is not simply fixing what resisted you. It is awakening the part of you that was meant to rise above those battles in the first place. There have been moments in your life when you felt something was being whispered to your spirit, but you couldn't fully discern it. Times when you sensed a nudge, an instinct, a deep inner feeling that something greater was happening beneath the surface of your daily experiences. You may have dismissed those moments as intuition or emotion, but Archangel Michael says they were not emotional signals, they were spiritual notifications. Heaven has been trying to alert you for a long time that you were approaching a season where everything hidden would come into the light. The resistance you experienced was not random. It was not accidental. It was not because you were weak or unprepared. It was because you were spiritually outgrowing environments, attachments, beliefs, and cycles that were too small for the calling placed on your life. Archangel Michael reveals this now. Every time you felt misunderstood, every time you felt unseen, every time you felt like you were carrying more than others recognized, it was because your spirit was already reaching into a higher dimension before the rest of your life caught up. You have always been spiritually sensitive, more aware of energy shifts than you allowed yourself to admit. This sensitivity is not a burden. It is a gift. It has kept you alert. It has kept you protected. It has kept you connected to divine guidance even in seasons when you thought you were walking blindly. Archangel Michael says your ability to feel shifts before they manifest is one of the reasons heaven chose to speak this message into your life now. You will recognize the shift before the world sees it. But here is the truth that heaven now brings into the open. The spiritual resistance around you intensified recently because your breakthrough timeline accelerated. You may have wondered why attacks felt stronger, why confusion felt heavier, or why emotional unpredictability seemed to rise without explanation. It is because you moved closer to your divine alignment. Resistance increases when breakthrough is near. Darkness attempts to distort when destiny begins to activate. Old cycles try to reattach themselves when heaven is preparing to dismantle them forever. Archangel Michael says the shift coming to your life is not quiet. It is not gentle. It is not a subtle adjustment. It is a force. It is a spiritual wind. It is a divine command sent directly from the courts of heaven to withdraw every assignment, every interference, every delay that once pressed against your life. When this shift activates fully, you will feel internal clarity like never before. You will see the truth behind connections, opportunities, and experiences that once confused you. You will understand why certain paths felt blocked. You will recognize why certain relationships felt spiritually draining. You will finally see the pattern behind the discomfort. Heaven says your spirit has been calling for this moment long before your words knew how to express it. You asked for change. You prayed for confirmation. You pleaded for clarity. And heaven responded not with small signs, but with a full spiritual reversal. Archangel Michael says, "You are not entering a better season. You are entering your rightful season." The shift is not an upgrade. It is alignment with what was always yours but was delayed by spiritual interference. There is a deeper layer now unfolding. Heaven wants you to understand that the divine shift is not only about removing what resisted you, but also about restoring what was meant to empower you. Your confidence will return. Your focus will sharpen. Your energy will renew. Your spiritual sensitivity will heighten. Your inner authority will awaken. Everything that was dimmed by the weight of past wounds will be reignited. The reversal is not external only. It is internal, foundational, transformational. This is why trust is required immediately. Trust is not a test. It is a bridge. It carries your spirit across the gap between where you were and where you are now being positioned. The shift cannot complete itself if your heart hesitates. Archangel Michael says heaven needs your agreement, not your understanding. Understanding will come later. Agreement is needed now. Let this truth settle into your spirit. Nothing that belongs to you can be taken from you, and nothing being removed from your life was ever part of your divine trajectory. Heaven is not clearing your path to leave you empty. It is clearing your path to make room for fulfillment, stability, purpose, and divine clarity. Stay with this message. Your spirit is being prepared for the revelation of what heaven has been waiting to show you. The truth ahead will change the way you interpret every spiritual storm you have walked through. Type "I align with the shift" in the comments to seal this into your spirit. Lesson code 7744 now moves into your atmosphere with authority. I Rising One. There is a sacred intensity surrounding you now, a quiet yet undeniable pull drawing you deeper into the center of this divine unfolding. Archangel Michael stands nearer than before, and the light around him flickers like a flame responding to a sudden wind. He says you have entered the portion of the shift where understanding begins to open like a sealed book finally permitted to be read. Heaven has watched the long stretch of your journey, the endurance, the confusion, the silent prayers, the hidden tears, and now the reversal begins to expose not just what resisted you, but why it resisted you. This is where the message becomes personal, precise, and deeply revealing. You have carried a strength within you that even you did not fully recognize. A strength that developed in silence. A strength molded through seasons where nothing seemed to make sense. But Archangel Michael says this strength frightened the forces that oppose your calling. It wasn't your weakness that made you a target, it was your potential. It was a power inside you that you didn't yet know how to use. It was your instinct to rise, even when no one understood why you kept rising. And because the enemy sensed what you were becoming before you consciously realized it, resistance grew early, attaching itself to your journey through subtle, emotional, relational, and situational patterns. But now, the divine shift is peeling back every layer of false influence that tried to shape your destiny. You may notice that memories are resurfacing, not to hurt you but to heal you. Thoughts that once controlled you are losing their grip. Situations that once intimidated you no longer hold the same emotional power. This is the evidence of spiritual reversal taking form. Archangel Michael says heaven is not only removing obstacles, it is removing the emotional response tied to those obstacles. You are being freed from the internal reaction patterns that used to sabotage your forward movement. He wants you to understand something powerful. The shift happening around you is deeply connected to your identity. Not the identity shaped by past experiences, but the identity heaven originally wrote for you. There were moments in your life where you learned to shrink, moments where you adapted to survive environments that could not support your spiritual magnitude. You dimmed your voice. You softened your intuition. You silenced your dreams. You lowered your expectations because disappointment had become familiar. But heaven never lowered its expectations of you. Heaven never erode your calling. Heaven never backed away from the greatness assigned to your life. And now Archangel Michael says the shift is restoring what you unconsciously surrendered. There is a divine boldness awakening in you. A clarity that does not come from confidence alone, but from spiritual remembrance. Your soul is remembering who you were before life shaped you into someone smaller. Your spirit is remembering the authority you were meant to carry. Your inner world is remembering the divine imprint placed upon you long before earthly experiences tried to diminish your sense of worth. This remembrance is the ignition point of the reversal. When you remember who you are, everything that once worked against you loses its strength. Archangel Michael reveals something deeply intimate now. You have been walking with a destiny larger than your environment. This means you were often placed in rooms too small for your spirit, surrounded by people who could not fully perceive your depth, in positions that minimized your gifts instead of activating them, in cycles that taught you survival instead of expansion. Heaven is not exposing this to bring bitterness. It is exposing it to explain why you always felt slightly out of place, even when you tried to settle. You were never meant to settle. Your spirit was crafted for movement, elevation, and breakthrough. This shift is not just removing the barriers, it is also elevating your path. Heaven is preparing to move you into spaces that match your spiritual frequency. Spaces where your voice will carry weight. Spaces where your gifts will be welcomed, not resisted. Spaces where you will not have to hide your sensitivity, your intuition, your intelligence, or your spiritual insight. These are places you were always meant to reach, but the timing had to align with your internal readiness. The reversal is heaven's declaration that you are ready now. You may feel a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty as you hear this. Both are natural. Anticipation because your spirit recognizes truth. Uncertainty because your mind is still adjusting to the idea that your story is shifting in ways you cannot yet see. Archangel Michael says this tension is the spiritual evidence that transformation is underway. You are between what was and what will be. You are in the corridor of becoming. And heaven stands guard around you, ensuring you transition safely and precisely. Heaven also wants you to understand that the shift is not only about spiritual victory, it is about emotional freedom. You will no longer carry the heaviness of old disappointments. You will no longer expect loss. You will no longer brace yourself for endings. These emotional reflexes were created in seasons where you lacked protection. But now you are protected. Now you are guided. Now you are supported by the full force of divine alignment. Your spirit is safe to expand again. Stay close to this message. You are approaching the moment where the purpose behind the delay, the resistance, and the spiritual pressure will be revealed in full. What comes next will reshape your understanding of your entire journey. Type "I rise" with this shift in the comments if you feel the awakening unfolding within you. Blessing code 9090 now opens the next chapter of your transformation. My chosen soul, there is a profound stillness settling around your spirit right now, a stillness that does not come from silence but from alignment. Archangel Michael stands before you with a presence that feels both protective and deeply intentional. He says you have come to the point in this divine shift where heaven begins revealing the true meaning behind the resistance you have endured. This is not just revelation, this is spiritual decoding. Heaven is untying the knots that once kept your path entangled, and as these knots loosen, clarity begins to rise in your spirit like dawn breaking over a long, shadowed landscape. You have lived through seasons where you questioned your own direction. You felt pulled between what your heart desired and what your life seemed to allow. You wrestled with moments of feeling spiritually awake and yet physically restricted. Archangel Michael wants you to understand the truth behind this duality. The calling on your life has always been larger than the circumstances surrounding you. The resistance you felt was not evidence of failure, it was evidence of purpose. When a destiny is great, the pressure around it is equally great. Only those with significant spiritual assignments experience the kind of inner shaking you have walked through. Heaven reveals now that many of the battles you faced were not even about the present version of you. They were about the future version. The forces that opposed you were responding to what you are becoming, not what you were. They sensed your emerging clarity. They sensed your rising authority. They sensed the activation of dormant gifts that you had not yet fully recognized. You were being opposed on the level of your destiny, not your current reality. And that is why the resistance often felt disproportionate to your situation. You were wrestling with spiritual forces that feared what you carried long before you understood its magnitude. Archangel Michael shows a vision of your life like a path stretching through multiple seasons. Some parts of the path appear bright and smooth, others dark and narrow, others turbulent with spiritual activity. He points to the darkest sections, not to shame you, but to explain them. He says, these were the moments heaven was preparing your spirit for the shift you now stand inside. The pressure, the confusion, the emotional disruptions, the unexpected endings, they were all permitted, not to break you, but to sharpen your discernment. Heaven needed you to recognize your own spiritual sensitivity because it is that sensitivity that will guide you through the next phase of your calling. You may not have realized it, but in every season of struggle, your spirit was learning. When someone betrayed you, your intuition strengthened. When someone underestimated you, your identity deepened. When someone walked away, your discernment sharpened. When opportunities collapsed, your alignment improved. When it felt like everything was being stripped away, heaven was actually removing what could not accompany you into your next chapter. The divine shift you are experiencing now is not a random blessing. It is the culmination of everything you endured, everything you learned, and everything heaven prepared behind the scenes. Archangel Michael says the reversal unfolding in your life is correcting spiritual imbalances that have existed for years. Times when you poured into others more than they poured into you. Times when you carried burdens that were never meant to be yours. Times when you stayed loyal to situations that drained your energy and silenced your truth. Heaven is now restoring the equilibrium. The shift is bringing justice to areas where you were treated unfairly. It is bringing honor to places where you were once dismissed. It is bringing clarity to connections that once left you confused. The imbalance is being corrected through divine intervention, not human effort. There is something else he reveals now, something your spirit has likely sensed but your mind struggled to articulate. Certain people were never meant to understand you. This misunderstanding was not your flaw, it was your protection. Had they understood your calling, they may have tried to diminish it. Had they recognized your light, they may have tried to absorb it. Had they seen your destiny, they may have tried to block it. Heaven allowed certain misunderstandings so that your path would remain guarded until the appointed time. And that appointed time is now. Archangel Michael says the reason trust is required immediately is because the next phase of this shift demands your full spiritual openness. You are entering a season where the decisions you make must be guided by intuition, not fear. Where you must follow the quiet inner voice that heaven has been training you to recognize. Where you must not look backward for validation but forward for confirmation. The shift is already moving, but your agreement is what accelerates it. You may feel an inner stirring, a subtle trembling of anticipation. This is your spirit recognizing that something long awaited is drawing near. You may feel a release, as if something heavy has finally lifted. This is your soul stepping into alignment with a reversal. You may feel a sudden awareness, as if your life is beginning to rearrange itself internally before anything changes externally. This is heaven touching the foundation of your destiny. There's a final truth Archangel Michael whispers before this part closes. You are not behind. You are right on time. Every detour, every delay, every disappointment served a purpose that will soon become clear. Heaven has not forgotten you. Heaven has not overlooked you. Heaven has not abandoned your prayers. You are standing at the threshold of fulfillment, and the shift is about to reveal why the journey was so long and so spiritually intense. Stay close. The revelation ahead carries the key to understanding the reason heaven moved with such urgency in your life. I stand in my divine timing in the comments to anchor this into your spirit. Blessing code 4410 now seals this layer of awakening into your journey. My illuminated spirit. The air around you is shifting again, not with chaos but with unmistakable divine precision. Archangel Michael stands beside you with a clarity that pierces through the atmosphere. He says you have now entered one of the most crucial moments of this entire divine reversal. This is the moment when heaven does not just reveal what resisted you or why it resisted you, but what it was ultimately trying to prevent you from becoming. And as this revelation unfolds, you may feel your spirit expanding, almost as if something deep within you is finally waking up after years of spiritual sleep. Archangel Michael explains that everything you faced, the delays, the confusion, the emotional heaviness, the unexpected endings, was orbiting around one simple truth. You carry an anointing that was never meant to remain dormant. You carry a purpose that stretches beyond your current environment. You carry a voice that holds authority in realms you have not yet fully stepped into. And heaven is now shifting the weight around your life so you can walk in that authority without interference. He says the divine shift is not happening to you but through you. And your inner atmosphere transforms, your outer reality will follow. Heaven wants you to understand something profound. The reason the resistance intensified in certain seasons was because you were about to step into spiritual awareness that would change everything. You were beginning to see people differently. You were beginning to sense energies more clearly. You were beginning to discern motives without needing explanations. You were beginning to recognize when something felt wrong even if it looked right. This awakening was a threat, not your weakness, not your vulnerability, not your uncertainty. What threatened the forces that oppose you was your emerging strength, your expanding clarity, your rising connection to divine guidance. Archangel Michael reveals that you have always carried a spiritual depth that most people never took the time to understand. And heaven protected that depth by allowing you to walk through experiences that forced you inward, strengthening your foundation from the inside out. You may have felt isolated at times, misunderstood, or emotionally disconnected from environments that didn't match your spirit. But this isolation was not punishment, it was preparation. Heaven was carving spiritual space around your life so that when the reversal arrived, you would be ready to receive it without collapsing under its weight. This is why the divine shift is so significant. It is not simply a change of circumstances. It is a change of capacity. Heaven is enlarging your ability to hold blessing, wisdom, clarity, spiritual authority, and divine alignment without fear or self-doubt. The version of you that walked out of this shift will not be the version that walked into it. Archangel Michael says, the new season requires a new identity, and heaven is removing everything that once concealed the true you. He goes on to reveal that some of the emotional heaviness you experienced lately was not yours. You have absorbed energies from people you cared about, people you supported, people you prayed for, people you tried to carry even when it drained you. You took on burdens that did not belong to you because your heart is naturally empathetic and your spirit naturally sensitive. But the shift is breaking this pattern. Heaven is teaching you to feel without absorbing, to recognize without caring, to discern without becoming overwhelmed. You will no longer confuse compassion with self-sacrifice. You will no longer mistake loyalty for bondage. You will no longer attach your worth to how much pain you can endure for others. The reversal coming into your life includes emotional boundaries, spiritual clarity, and a new level of inner wholeness. There is something else Archangel Michael wants you to hear clearly. You are about to see evidence of the shift. Signs, synchronicities, sudden clarity, unexpected movement. All of it will begin surfacing around you. But your trust is what accelerates these signs. Trust is the spiritual permission that allows heaven to complete what it has already started. He says fear slows the shift, that weakens the momentum. But trust turns a divine shift into a divine manifestation. You may feel as though something is preparing to break open, and you are right. Heaven is not only reversing what worked against you, it is aligning what will lift you. Relationships that empower you will begin to appear. Opportunities that resonate with your identity will begin to rise. Encounters that elevate your spirit will unfold naturally. What once felt like waiting will now feel like unfolding. What once felt like stagnation will now feel like acceleration. And in this moment, Archangel Michael commands your spirit to rise above the old emotional patterns. He says the shift ahead requires you to walk in confidence, not caution. To walk in faith, not hesitation. To walk in spiritual awareness, not emotional fear. Heaven is backing you. Heaven is guiding you. Heaven is clearing the path before you. Before this part closes, he offers one more revelation. What is coming will confirm why the battle was so intense. You are approaching the unveiling of destiny. Stay close. Do not detach. Do not rush. Everything you have walked through is about to make sense. Type "I am ready for what is mine" in the comments if your spirit feels this alignment. Blessing code 3307 now activates the release of clarity and divine strength over your life. Make sure you like this message, share it to bless someone else, comment to keep this word alive in the algorithm, and subscribe so you never miss a divine warning, confirmation, or guidance meant for your path. When heaven begins to reverse what resisted you, it often calls you to rise into partnership with the very message that awakened your spirit. The light that is touching you right now is meant to travel, to reach others who are still trapped in the battles you have already overcome. I speak this as a divine invitation. When you sow into a mission that carries God's voice, you magnify the reach of heaven itself. Scripture declares that those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed, and today that promise comes alive over your life. If this message stirred something sacred in you, step boldly. Your support through Super Thanks membership, where the PayPal link in the description becomes a prophetic seed that heaven multiplies. I declare that every giver in this moment will walk under open heavens, accelerated reversal, and divine protection. Do not hesitate. Move with the shift. Move with heaven. My advancing soul, you have stepped into a sacred corridor now, a spiritual hallway where heaven begins to align everything that was scattered, confused, or hidden in your journey. Archangel Michael stands tall beside you, and his presence feels different in this moment, stronger, clearer, almost as if the atmosphere itself had been cleansed to prepare you for what comes next. He says the divine shift unfolding in your life has reached the stage where heaven no longer deals with the surface of your circumstances but the foundation of your destiny. This is the moment where truth becomes unmistakable, where the internal aligns with the external, and where your spirit begins to sense the nearness of the fulfillment you once doubted would ever arrive. Archangel Michael reveals something deeply intimate now. The shift is activating because your spirit has finally outgrown the environments that once tried to contain you. There were seasons where you felt small, even though your soul was expanding. There were moments where you felt invisible, even though heaven was spotlighting you. There were days when you felt spiritually exhausted, not because you were weak but because you were carrying a level of discernment that others around you were not prepared to understand. You have lived with a calling that exceeded your surroundings, and heaven is now rearranging your life to match what you carry within. He says the resistance you felt in past seasons was actually a sign that you were misaligned with your true path. You kept trying to fit where you were never meant to remain. You tried to hold on to people whose spiritual assignment in your life had already ended. You attempted to revive connections heaven had already closed. You invested your heart in places where your spirit could not breathe. But the divine shift does not allow you to stay where your destiny cannot grow. Every disruption, every unexpected ending, every emotional release was heaven guiding you out of the wrong doors so the right ones could open without interference. Now, heaven is moving you into alignment with what has always been yours. This is why certain things are resurfacing. Old dreams, forgotten ideas, long-buried desires, spiritual instincts that once felt distant. These are not random reappearances. Archangel Michael says they are confirmations. They are reminders that your soul never forgot what it was created for. The shift is bringing back what your spirit has been quietly holding on to even when your circumstances told you to give up. There is also a profound truth he speaks now. Some of the people who fell away were not removed to hurt you. They were removed to protect the purity of the path ahead. Had they stayed, they would have diluted your clarity. Had they remained, they would have shaped your decisions through their own limitations. Heaven saw what you could not see. Their presence would have interfered with the divine timing prepared for you. So detachment became necessary. Release became sacred. Separation became protection. The divine shift is isolating only what is essential and removing what is not. It is refining your desires, sharpening your spiritual instincts, and repositioning you for what is ahead. You may notice that you are no longer attracted to the same conversations, the same habits, the same environments. This is spiritual evolution, not emotional confusion. You are outgrowing the version of yourself that was shaped by survival. You are stepping into the version shaped by calling. Archangel Michael shows a vision now, a path clearing, obstacles dissolving like smoke, and a light stretching forward, wider than before. He says this is what the next phase of your journey looks like. The clarity you once begged for is arriving. The confusion that clouded your decisions is lifting. The hesitation that kept you stagnant is breaking. Heaven is moving swiftly, with intention, with direction, with purpose. Nothing in your life is happening randomly anymore. You are in a season of divine orchestration. Heaven also wants you to release the fear of missteps. You are not walking blindly. You are not walking alone. You are not walking without guidance. Archangel Michael himself is guiding the shift, ensuring you do not wander into detours that once consumed your energy. He says your sensitivity is increasing because heaven wants you to notice what you once ignored: inner signals, subtle warnings, small confirmations, quiet alignments. These are the signposts of your new beginning. You may feel like you are standing at the edge of something enormous, something life-altering, something sacred. You are. And that feeling is not anxiety, it is recognition. Your soul recognizes divine timing before your mind catches up. Your spirit recognizes spiritual movement before your eyes see physical evidence. This is why something within you feels alert, awakened, ready. Archangel Michael whispers a truth now that settles deep into your spirit. Your waiting season is ending. Not because the world suddenly shifts, but because you have shifted. Heaven responds to internal readiness, not external conditions. And you are finally ready, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, to receive what was always meant for you. But there is something important you must understand as you step into the next layer of this revelation. The shift will require you to trust what you feel even before you see it. Trust is not passive right now. It is active. It is powerful. It is the force that pulls manifestation into reality. The rest of this journey cannot be navigated with old patterns of fear. It must be walked with spiritual awareness, grounded faith, and a willingness to embrace what heaven is placing in your hands. Stay here. Stay open. Stay aligned. What you are about to receive will explain why everything had to unfold exactly as it did. Type "I am prepared for my blessing" in the comments if your spirit knows something is moving. Blessing code 7719 is now released over your unfolding destiny. My ascending soul, you have reached a moment in this journey where heaven begins not only to reveal the hidden truths of your past battles, but also to unveil the magnitude of what is coming toward you. Archangel Michael stands before you now in a posture of declaration, as though the next words spoken over your life are meant to shift the atmosphere around you instantly. He says that what you are stepping into is not merely a blessing, not merely a breakthrough, but a divine repositioning that will rewrite the trajectory of your destiny. This is the level of transformation that requires spiritual maturity, emotional readiness, and unwavering trust. And heaven confirms that you have finally stepped into that readiness. There is a reason your spirit has felt stretched in recent seasons, a reason your emotions felt pulled in directions you couldn't explain, a reason your intuition heightened with no logical cause. Heaven was expanding your capacity. Not your capacity to endure, but your capacity to receive. For too long, you learned survival. You learned endurance. You learned resilience. But now you are learning receptivity, the ability to hold blessing without doubting it, to hold peace without fearing its loss, to hold progress without expecting it to collapse. This is why the shift feels different. It is not external first. It is internal first. Archangel Michael says the divine shift rewrites your inner world before it restructures your outer world. He reveals a powerful truth now. You were walking beneath your spiritual inheritance because past wounds taught you to expect less than what you deserved. You lowered your expectations because disappointment conditioned you to shrink them. You silenced your desires because life convinced you they were too much. But heaven never once lowered the magnitude of what was written for you. They simply waited for your spirit to rise into alignment with it. And now that alignment is happening. That inner rise is the very reason the shift accelerated. Archangel Michael shows a vision of your life as a timeline with certain moments glowing. Moments where you felt something awaken. Moments where your spirit expanding frightened you. Moments where your inner strength surprised even yourself. He says these were the checkpoints of your spiritual awakening, proof that your destiny was unfolding even when your circumstances looked stagnant. Heaven has been shaping you like clay, molding you through every trial, every setback, every breakthrough, every revelation. And this season marks the moment when the shaping ends and the unveiling begins. There is a truth many do not understand, but heaven speaks it plainly now. Spiritual elevation always comes with spiritual separation. In order for you to rise, certain attachments had to fall away. Not all departures were personal. Some were divine design. Some were heaven's way of protecting you from people who would not honor your next level. Some were spiritual boundaries being enforced on your behalf. Archangel Michael says that if every person you wanted to keep in your life had remained, your destiny would have been delayed. The divine shift required a clearing so that only what is aligned can travel with you into the next chapter. But there is something even more significant, he reveals. The shift is not only removing what no longer fits, it is drawing toward you what always belonged. The opportunities that once bypassed you will now recognize you. The relationships that align with your purpose will begin to appear naturally. The clarity you once begged heaven for will emerge effortlessly. What once felt complicated will simplify. What once felt heavy will lighten. What once felt like a mystery will reveal itself with precision. This is because you are stepping into a season where your spirit is no longer fighting itself. For years, you carried inner contradictions, faith and fear, calling and confusion, strength and exhaustion. But heaven had been reconciling these contradictions. You are becoming internally unified, spiritually synchronized. And when the spirit becomes aligned, manifestation becomes inevitable. Archangel Michael says alignment is the birthplace of miracles. And you, right now, are entering alignment. Heaven also wants you to understand that divine timing has finally converged in your favor. Doors that were once closed were not closed forever. They were closed until you were spiritually ready to walk through them. People who did not understand you then may attempt to return now because they sense the shift. But heaven reminds you to guard your discernment. Not everyone who returns deserves access. Some doors must remain shut for your next chapter to unfold without interference. Archangel Michael speaks with intensity now. Do not shrink for the sake of anyone. The shift requires your full spiritual height. You cannot fold yourself back into spaces you outgrew. You cannot explain your calling to those who are not meant to understand it. You cannot dim your intuition because it makes others uncomfortable. The shift is not about humility misunderstood as hiding. It is about rising into the authority heaven has always placed within you. You may feel a strange mixture of peace and expectancy right now. Peace because your spirit senses that the worst is behind you. Expectancy because something new, something divinely appointed, is approaching. Heaven affirms this sensation. You are entering a season where you will see movement. Real movement. Not imagined, not hoped for, not delayed, manifested movement. The kind of movement that feels like destiny catching up to you after years of spiritual preparation. Before this part closes, Archangel Michael speaks one more truth, a truth meant to root deeply into your spirit. What is coming is not fragile. It will not slip through your fingers. It is secured by heaven. You no longer have to fear losing what God is placing in your life. The reversal is permanent. The alignment is divine. The shift is unstoppable. Remain open. Remain trusting. Remain aligned. The greatest revelation is still ahead. Type "I receive my divine positioning" in the comments if this resonates with your soul. Blessing code 6628 now anchors this truth into your atmosphere. My awakened spirit, you are stepping now into one of the deepest layers of this divine unfolding, a place where heaven begins to connect the pieces of your journey with a level of clarity that will make your entire past feel newly illuminated. Archangel Michael stands before you in a posture of both strength and compassion, because what he is about to reveal carries the weight of destiny. He says the divine shift moving over your life is not just a moment. It is a turning point written into your spiritual blueprint long before you ever walked this earth. Nothing you have endured has been disconnected from this moment. Every struggle, every delay, every unanswered question has been guiding you toward this hour of revelation. There were times in your journey when you felt spiritually exhausted, as though life kept asking more of you than you had to give. You questioned whether you were doing something wrong, whether you were missing signs, whether heaven was silent. But Archangel Michael says heaven was never silent. Heaven was working. Heaven was arranging. Heaven was protecting you from taking paths that were beneath your calling. The unanswered prayers were rerouted prayers. The delays were strategic pauses. The detours were divine interventions. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was meaningless. Every moment, even the painful ones, carried spiritual intelligence shaping you into the person who could receive what is coming now. Your heart may ache when you think about the losses you endured, friendships that faded, relationships that fractured, opportunities that dissolved before they had a chance to grow. But heaven reveals a truth that will settle deeply into your spirit. You were not losing, you were being positioned. Not everyone was meant to walk with you into the higher realms of your calling. Not every environment was capable of nurturing who you were becoming. Some people loved the version of you that dimmed itself to stay small. It would have resisted the version of you rising now, the version heaven has always seen. Archangel Michael says these separations were sacred, even if they felt painful. They were not punishments but protections. Allow the divine shift is entering its stage of divine unveiling. You are beginning to see why certain things did not work out, why certain people could not say, why certain seasons felt like wilderness experiences. The wilderness was not isolation, it was consecration. Heaven was stripping away distractions, removing old identities, breaking generational patterns, and realigning your spirit with your original design. You were not lost. You were being refined. And the refinement has produced a spiritual purity, a strength, a discernment that few ever develop. This is why Archangel Michael says your next season will not require the same battles. You have already passed the tests those battles were meant to teach. You may feel a new sense of clarity rising within you, even if life still looks uncertain. But clarity is not logical. It is spiritual. It is your inner being recognizing that you are no longer who you were. You are not thinking the same. You are not reacting the same. You are not seeking the same validation you once needed. This is evidence of spiritual elevation. Heaven has upgraded your perception, and once perception changes, destiny accelerates. You are stepping into a higher frequency, a higher identity, a higher awareness of your worth and your calling. Even your silence has changed. No longer a silence of confusion, but a silence of discernment. Archangel Michael shows a vision now, your spirit standing on a high mountain overlooking the path of your life, seeing every valley and every victory with new eyes. From this height, the things that once overwhelmed you now appear small. The situations that once broke you no longer hold power. The people who once drained you no longer feel connected to your energy. Heaven says this is because your spirit has ascended. You are no longer living from the version of yourself shaped by pain. You are living from the version shaped by purpose. This shift is also awakening your authority. Authority over your emotions. Authority over your decisions. Authority over your boundaries. Authority over your future. Heaven is guiding you to stop negotiating with your intuition. To stop shaking for the comfort of others, to stop apologizing for your discernment. You have spiritual sight for a reason. You have sensitivity for a reason. You have inner knowing for a reason. These are not burdens. They are tools. They are gifts. They are the markers of someone walking in divine assignment. Archangel Michael speaks firmly now. You are entering a season where hesitation cannot follow. The next chapter requires decisive faith. It requires trusting the impulses heaven places in your spirit. It requires releasing the stories you tell yourself about who you are not, and embracing the truth of who you have always been. This shift is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering yourself at a soul level, remembering the strength you buried, remembering the dreams you postponed, remembering the spiritual authority you once doubted. Heaven is pulling the real you to the surface. You may feel a strange calm settling in your heart as you read this. That calm is heaven's confirmation. It is the assurance that you are safe to rise, safe to trust, safe to move forward without fear of collapse. The stability you have been seeking is not external. It is internal. And it is being built into you right now. Before this part closes, Archangel Michael gives one final reassurance. You are not stepping into the unknown. You are stepping into the prepared. Heaven has gone before you. Heaven has cleared the path. Heaven has aligned the timing. Heaven has released the protection. You are walking into a destiny that has been waiting for you to arrive. Your spirit is ready. Your path is ready. Heaven is ready. Type "I walk into my prepared destiny" in the comments if this truth resonates within you. Blessing code 8822 now seals this revelation into your spirit. My ascended soul, you have arrived at the threshold of everything this divine message has been preparing you for. Archangel Michael stands before you now in full revelation, his presence radiating with the certainty of heaven's intention. He says this final stage of the divine shift is where your past, your present, and your future meet. This is the moment where understanding deepens, clarity sharpens, and your spirit awakens fully to the transformation heaven has been orchestrating behind the scenes. You are not simply nearing the end of a season. You are stepping into the beginning of a destiny chapter that was written exclusively for you. Heaven wants you to understand that the spiritual journey you have walked, every battle, every awakening, every moment of surrender, has brought you to this very point. Nothing was coincidental. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was meaningless. You were being shaped, refined, prepared, elevated. And now Archangel Michael reveals the truth that ties everything together. The divine shift was not only designed to reverse what worked against you, but to reveal who you were always meant to be. He shows you a vision of yourself, stronger, lighter, clearer, more aligned. A version of you that has healed beyond what others ever believed possible. A version that carries wisdom etched from the storms you survived. A version that stands with spiritual authority instead of emotional fear. He says this is not the future version of you. This is the real you. The version heaven has been pulling toward the surface through every breaking, every realignment, every revelation. For too long, you lived beneath the weight of expectations placed on you by others. Family, society, relationships, even your own fears. You accepted roles that did not match your calling. You carried responsibilities that were not yours. You made yourself smaller, quieter, softer to keep peace that was never meant to be your burden. But the divine shift comes to free you from every identity that did not belong to your soul. It comes to strip away the labels you inherited through pain. It comes to release the emotional and spiritual contracts you unconsciously signed to survive environments you were never meant to stay in. Archangel Michael says, you were not meant to live in fragments. You were meant to live in wholeness. And this is what the shift is restoring, your wholeness. The parts of you that were lost through disappointment. The parts of you that were silenced through betrayal. The parts of you that dimmed through exhaustion. The parts of you that hid because the world around you was not yet ready for your light. Heaven is returning these pieces to you one by one, and you will feel the difference. You will feel the return of strength. You will feel the return of joy. You will feel the return of clarity, purpose, and spiritual fire. This final revelation also carries a sacred responsibility. You must become the guardian of your own destiny. Heaven can shift you. Heaven can prepare you. Heaven can clear your path. But only you can choose to walk in the identity that has been restored to you. The days of shrinking, doubting, apologizing for your calling are over. Archangel Michael now commissions you to step boldly into the fullness of your assignment. The fears that once controlled you have lost their grip. The wounds that once dictated your decisions have been healed at their roots. The spiritual forces that once resisted you have been dismantled by divine authority. You are no longer who you were, and you must stop treating yourself as though you are. You are rising into a version of yourself that will attract different opportunities, different connections, different spiritual experiences. What comes next for you will not resemble your past. This is a new chapter, not a continuation of old cycles. Archangel Michael says heaven has shifted the entire landscape of your destiny. People who once overlooked you will now be drawn to you without explanation. Opportunities that once bypassed you will seek you out. Doors that were sealed will open at the sound of your name. You are stepping into spiritual favor that cannot be reversed. But he gives one final instruction. Do not look back. The season behind you has nothing left to teach you. Its purpose hath been fulfilled. The shift has severed old timelines, old patterns, and old identities. Looking back will only delay what heaven is trying to unfold. Your destiny is forward. Your clarity is forward. Your breakthrough is forward. Heaven is not calling you to revisit the past. It is calling you to walk into the life you prayed for. And now, Archangel Michael speaks the final truth of this divine message. You are ready. Heaven has confirmed it. The shift has begun. Step into the reversal with confidence. Let this settle into your spirit like a seal. Let it anchor you deeply. Let it remind you that you are walking under divine alignment now, not human expectation. You are walking with protection, guidance, and clarity unlike anything you have known before. Your spirit is ready for the blessings that once felt too heavy to hold. And as you step into this new chapter, heaven celebrates your arrival. Type "I step into my divine shift" in the comments if this message has spoken to your spirit. Blessing code 9991 now seals this divine cycle of reversal, restoration, and rising. Make sure you like this message so more souls can be reached. Share it with someone who needs confirmation. Comment your agreement to anchor the blessing, and subscribe so you never miss another divine revelation meant for your journey. When a soul reaches the moment of divine shift, heaven often calls that soul into partnership, not out of obligation, but out of destiny. You are not just receiving this word. You are carrying its light into places where others still sit in darkness. And heaven says, if this message awakened you, strengthened you, or restored you, then you are meant to help carry it further. Just as Archangel Michael has stood guard over your path, your support becomes a spiritual act that helps this mission reach the hearts that are crying out for guidance. Scripture declares that those who sow into divine work unlock a harvest that cannot be stolen. And today that word becomes living and active over your life. I speak this boldly. If you feel led, use super thanks. Join as a channel member. or so through the PayPal link in the description, not as donation, but as prophetic agreement with the shift over your own life. Every giver in this moment receives an accelerated portion of the blessing, the protection, and the reversal released in this message. Move with heaven. Move with faith. Move with purpose.